Tonight we're following 3 old desert and mountain legends, places where the ground once showed yellow and men swore they'd seen fortune with their own eyes, only for wind, rain, and time to erase the trail. 3 stories, 3 lost strikes, and the same question behind all of them: what if it's still out there? Northwest of Yuma, somewhere beyond the broken country north of Rochester Basin, lies a stretch of desert that keeps its secrets close. 80 years of wind, rain, and flash flood have piled their wreckage there, and beneath that rubble, if the old stories are true, rests a ledge of gold so rich it once showed yellow in every strike of a hammer. They called it the Colorado River Dutchman's Lost Ledge, and not many men alive today could even point you toward the country where it lies. That land is rough, empty, and mean. No roads reach it now. No engines are allowed there. Just rock, heat, and distance. The kind of country that breaks careless men and teaches patience to the rest. For generations it has drawn prospectors, not on rumor alone, but because some of them did find gold. Enough to keep a man moving. Enough to keep hope alive. In the late spring of 1955, Lance and I were camped north of Yuma near Laguna Dam, 16 years old and already restless for whatever the desert might offer. One afternoon, an old prospector came into camp leading a burro worn down by the long walk from town. He asked for water, for himself and the animal. "Help yourself," Lance told him. The man wore a wide-brimmed hat like something out of an old Western picture and carried a beard as white and wild as desert salt. When he'd drunk his fill, he settled into the shade and rolled himself a smoke with the care of a man who had nothing to rush toward. When Lance asked where he was headed, the old fellow shrugged. "Figuring on Senator Wash," he said. "Maybe I'll prospect a bit toward Picacho Peak. After that, Cargo Muchachos maybe. Got a placer claim there. Or I might head north into the chocolates." Lance blinked. "You mean you can find gold out here?" The old man smiled, slow and knowing. "Son, there's gold all through this country if you know where to look. Enough to keep me in beans, bacon, and smokes, but summer makes you earn every speck of it." He thanked us for the water and shuffled off with his burro toward Senator Wash. We never saw him again, and he never showed us a single flake, but we believed him. Men like that don't lie about the desert. They let it do the talking. Over the years, we wondered if he ever stumbled onto one of the lost mines the country whispers about, the lost mule shoe, the lost Sullivan, or the least known of them all, the Dutchman's Golden Ledge. That story goes back to 1910. A Dutch prospector, grub-staked out of quartzite, worked his way south through the Trigo Mountains, crossed the Colorado near Picacho, and began searching the hills toward newly finished Laguna Dam. He found a small basin high in the hills, with a water hole and a view down to a thin ribbon of green along the river. There, working late into the evening, he struck a vein so rich that free gold showed in every chunk of quartz. The ore lay right on the surface, easy to gather, easy to dream on. He worked it hard, too hard maybe, until his burros broke into his food stores and ruined what they didn't eat. A man can't mine on an empty stomach. The Dutchman loaded what ore he could, hitched his cart, and started for the river. When he reached the deep cut now called Senator Wash, he turned toward smoke he saw rising near the water. That fire belonged to Ed Rochester, a trapper and prospector working his way downriver from Needles. Rochester took the old man in, fed him, and listened as he told his story by firelight. For payment, the Dutchman handed over several chunks of quartz so rich they showed gold plain as day. Rochester ferried him and his burros across the river, watched him head toward quartzite, and never saw him again. Rochester sold 3 pieces of that ore for $62, a small fortune at the time, and spent years afterward wondering if the Dutchman ever made it back to his ledge. He doubted it. Years later, Rochester searched the hills himself. He found the basin, the water hole, and the ironwood branches cut high for burros to browse, but never the vein. He kept the story quiet and hunted the ledge off and on for nearly 50 years. The desert gave him everything but the gold. In 1991, Chester Long and I took up the search. We parked at Senator Wash and walked toward Picacho Peak, following old trails, reading the land the way men used to. Chester carried a metal detector tuned for gold. We found an Indian trail, crossed lava fields, climbed a hill, and looked back toward the river. The view matched the old descriptions exactly. Later, we found burrow tracks, fresh, and beside them, a single chunk of yellow quartz carrying low-grade gold. There were no quartz outcrops nearby. We never found another piece. That's the way of lost mines in this country. The desert gives and takes on its own terms. Storms bury veins, floods uncover them again, and men come and go chasing the same yellow dream. There are old workings south of Senator Wash, the Hess mine, the Senator, the Trio, but the Dutchman's ledge still waits somewhere under the rubble. And if you go looking for it, you'd better bring strong legs, patience, and respect for the land. As for Chester and me, well, Chester's been back at least once since, or so his wife tells me. Some men never stop listening when the desert calls. The Colorado River country teaches one lesson fast. A rich find can vanish overnight, buried by flood and rubble like it never existed. But sometimes the secret isn't swept away by storms. Sometimes it's kept alive by a single witness and carried into the next generation, deep in the high timber of Idaho. Charles Curtis did not set out to find anything remarkable. He was like many men who drifted west with a pack mule and a hopeful eye, trusting the mountains to either break him or reward him. Somewhere in the high country of central Idaho, they did both. In the late 1850s, Curtis and his young son rode into those ranges together. For 2 years, they followed creeks and cut across ridges, camping where the ground looked promising, and washing gravel through a pan with cold, patient hands. Most days brought nothing but disappointment. Still, the boy never lost faith, and the man would not admit defeat. He had chased gold too long to turn back. They came at last to a broad meadow, lying near an old freight trail that carried supplies from Missoula down toward the Boise mines. The grass stood thick and green, good feed for horses, and a clear spring rose from a shelf of stone nearby. Curtis studied the place and decided to stay. It puzzled the other prospectors. Curtis had a reputation as a man who never stayed put, a hard case who followed rumors and half-truths into country others avoided. Yet here he was, building instead of wandering. With axe and saw, father and son raised a rough log cabin with a stone fireplace and chimney. They grazed half a dozen horses and lived quietly, keeping mostly to themselves. Curtis offered no explanations. Every few weeks he rode into Boise for supplies, and each time he paid with solid gold, clean nuggets, heavy in the hand. Men noticed, men wondered. Curtis said nothing. The winter of about 1890 came down hard on the mountains. Snow piled deep, and cold settled in like a living thing. It was then the boy took sick, high fever, wild talk, eyes that no longer recognized the cabin walls. Curtis wrapped himself against the cold and set out for help, breaking trail through snowdrifts that fought him every step of the way. Near exhaustion, he found an Indian living alone in a dugout beside the trail. The man's name was Slahia. Curtis told him of the boy and begged him to ride to Boise for a doctor. Slahia agreed, and Curtis turned back for the cabin carrying what hope he could. 5 days later, Slahia returned alone. He brought a bottle of dark medicine sent by a doctor who could not make the journey. For 2 days they worked over the boy, feeding him the medicine and watching for signs. None came. The boy died quietly. They buried him behind the cabin, raising a mound of stone 4 feet high. Curtis stood there a long time afterward, speaking a prayer the mountains carried away. The next morning, Curtis told Slahia he was riding to California to tell his wife what had happened. He said the boy had helped him find a rich gold deposit nearby, and that he would return with his wife to work it. Until then, he asked Slahia to stay on, to care for the horses and to see that no one disturbed the spring, the only water for miles. Before leaving, Curtis showed Slahia the truth. He moved a loose stone in the fireplace and pulled out 5 ore sacks. He opened one and spilled its contents onto the table. Gold rolled out, bright and heavy. Curtis said there was more where that came from, so much it could be gathered by hand. He promised Slahia good pay and a new rifle when he returned. Then he rode out into the snow and down the trail toward Boise. Curtis never came back. Slahia stayed on, tending the place and the horses. When supplies ran low, he rode to nearby settlements and used a little of the gold Curtis had left. As winter loosened its grip and the snow melted away, he turned to the spring for water. It was clogged with leaves and branches. Taking Curtis's shovel, Slahia cleared it out. When the water ran clean, he saw the bottom of the pool, and it shone. Gold lay there like gravel in a creek bed. Slahia filled his pockets, mounted a horse, and rode straight to Boise. In the town, he drank hard, spending the night in a tavern until he collapsed. By morning, he woke in a doctor's office blind. The doctor could not say why. He blamed the liquor, but nothing could be proven. Slahia returned to Bergdorf near the Salmon River Mountains and lived out his years running a rough roadhouse with a dirt floor. He survived on kindness and good manners. Curtis never returned, and the gold remained where it lay, untouched in the little spring. That was how the mountains kept their secret. In about 1960, a part-time prospector named W.D. Rhea was driving the back roads along the Salmon River Mountains when he pulled into a small mercantile for supplies. As he stepped from his car, he noticed an old Indian on the porch, bent with age, struggling to manage a small sack of food and the high wooden steps. Rhea went to him at once, offered an arm, and helped him down. The old man thanked him and gave his name. It was Slahia. He explained that once a week he made the long walk from his place in the hills to buy food. Rhea told him to wait while he gathered his supplies, and afterward he would give him a ride home. They drove slowly along the blacktop, the country rolling by in quiet stretches of timber and ridge. Rhea mentioned he was prospecting in the nearby mountains. Slahia grew thoughtful, then began to speak. He told Rhea about a spring filled with gold and about a man named Charles Curtis who had once lived high in those hills. Rhea listened closely as the old man spoke of the winter, the boy, and the cabin in the meadow. When Slahia finished, Rhea asked if he would be willing to guide him back to the place. Though Slahia was well past 80, he agreed without hesitation. He said it would be good to see the country once more. The next morning, Rhea picked him up and drove into the mountains. They followed twisting dirt roads, climbing higher as the land grew rougher. Rhea described what he saw ahead, and Slahia nodded, pointing now and then, memory guiding him where eyesight could not. At last, the road ended. From there, Slahia gave directions that would take a man several miles deeper into the hills. Rhea brought him home that afternoon and thanked him. The following morning, Rhea returned alone. He parked where the road gave out and started on foot. Before long, he found an old trail, just as Slahia had said, and followed it for nearly half an hour until it led him into a meadow. He searched for the cabin but found nothing at first. Then he saw it, a fallen log structure nearly swallowed by grass and forest debris. Nearby were the remains of a shed and a pole corral. A little farther on, he found a grave marked by a mound of stone, sunk deep into the meadow earth. Rhea knew then he was standing in the right place. He searched for the spring, but time had changed the land. Grass, brush, and young timber covered the meadow, and whatever once marked the water had long since vanished. The spring appeared to have dried up, or else hidden itself well. He searched all day and found nothing. As evening came on and the temperature dropped, he turned back. Work pulled him away. Not long after returning home, Rhea was offered a job in Alaska. With a wife and children to think of, he took it, and the Salmon River Mountains were left behind. Slahia died around 1970, nearly 100 years old. The spring, if it still exists, remains hidden somewhere in those mountains, its gold untouched, waiting as the country has always waited, patient and silent. That's the cruelest kind of treasure story, when you're sure the gold was real and you can point to the meadow, but the one place that matters won't show itself again. And it isn't just gold that plays that game. In Nevada's Black Rock Country, 3 travelers found something even stranger, a gully of nearly pure silver, and then lost it to the shifting land. In the spring of 1849, when the roads to California were thick with hope and dust, Allen Harding set out westward with 2 close friends, traveling in the long, creaking company of an immigrant wagon train. Like so many others, they were drawn by rumors of gold, fertile land, and the promise of a new beginning beyond the horizon. They pooled their savings, bought a wagon and a team, and left St. Louis behind, believing, without quite knowing why, that fortune was waiting for them somewhere ahead. Weeks of harsh travel brought the train at last to a quiet meadow near the base of Pahute Peak, the southern reach of Nevada's bleak Black Rock Range. There, beside the Mud Meadows River, the wagon master called a halt. Animals and people alike needed rest, and the meadow's tall grasses offered a brief kindness after the long, punishing trail. One morning, weary of dried meat and hard biscuits, Harding and his companions rode out into the hills to hunt. The land rose sharply, rough and empty, and for hours they found nothing but distant birds, too far away for a shot. Disappointed and hungry, they turned back toward camp in the afternoon, following a narrow, little-used trail that skirted a freshly carved gully. It was Harding who noticed it first, a pale gleam in the dirt below. He reined in his horse and dismounted, and the three men slid down into the gully, where the earth still bore the scars of recent violent rain. Scattered along the floor lay chunks of a strange white metal, heavy and dull, half buried in the mud. More protruded from the gully walls, and on the far side one of the men uncovered a thick, gleaming vein running straight through the rock. The pieces were far heavier than they appeared. Harding tested one with the tip of his knife and found it soft, easily cut, almost yielding to his touch. At first, he declared it lead, a useful discovery in itself. But then one of the men examined the vein more closely and his breath caught. This was no lead. It was silver, nearly pure. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Then the weight of what they had found settled in. They were standing amid a fortune. Their hands shook as they gathered what they could, about 25 pounds in all, before riding hard back to camp. There they told their story and begged others to return with them to retrieve more of the treasure. But the trail had made the travelers cautious. Many doubted the metal's true nature, and all were eager to press on now that their animals were rested. With rumors of hostile Paiute bands in the region, Harding and his friends made the bitter decision to continue on to California, marking landmarks carefully and swearing they would return. In Shasta, miners confirmed what Harding already knew. The silver was the purest they had ever seen. Yet even then, no one wished to abandon gold for a gamble in the Nevada wilderness. Penniless and in need of work, Harding and his companions stayed behind, taking jobs and saving what little they could. Months passed. Dreams faded. Eventually, the three men drifted apart. Still, Harding could not let the silver go. An assayer in San Francisco later confirmed its astonishing purity, renewing his resolve. Years passed. He settled in Petaluma, farmed the land, and lived a respectable life. But the mountains never quite released their hold on him. At last, nearly a decade after the discovery, Harding joined forces with a seasoned prospector named Frederick Alberding. Together with several others, they returned to the Black Rock Range, confident the silver still waited, but the land had changed, or perhaps it had never truly revealed itself at all. Harding could not find the gully. Landmarks no longer made sense. Hills blurred into one another. Seasons passed. Men joined and left the search. Some believed the gully had been scoured open by a single violent storm and later buried by years of runoff and debris. Others whispered that the land itself did not wish to be found. In 1860, news of a Paiute uprising reached the party. Fearing for their lives, they abandoned the search and returned to California. Harding vanished from record soon after. Yet the story did not vanish. For generations, prospectors and dreamers have entered the Black Rock Range, chasing the rumor of a lost gully filled with silver. Some found lesser veins. Most found nothing at all. Geologists say such gullies can appear and disappear in a single season, shaped by storms and erased by time. And so the legend endures that somewhere in those harsh Nevada foothills, waiting for the right storm and the right pair of eyes, Harding's silver still lies hidden beneath the earth, untouched and gleaming in the dark. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.